Hi, Sid.
Oh,
How are you?
good.
Good.
Hey,
How's
Sid.
y'all's night going?
Good.
Good. How are you?
Um, great. Thanks for taking my call.
So what you got for us?
Yeah. What do you got?
Well, I was wondering if I can give y'all an argument to follow Yeshua.
Sure, you can give us one. Sure.
Let's hear it.
Okay. I was just trying in the chat, so it's going to be repetitive, but it's basically a syllogism. It's one that the golden rule is the highest moral ethic, and then two that Yeshua invented the golden rule, and then three, therefore, that would follow that he's the greatest moral teacher.
Well, I'm gonna disagree with your second premise right off the bat, because as I mentioned earlier, the Vedas are older than the Bible, and that golden rule is in there too. So I don't know that Yeshua invented the golden rule or came up with it, because it was around before the belief in him was around. So
And also age, popularity,
Okay.
or even the fact that it's right, if something is true, doesn't get us to God. And I guess that's really the whole thing. We could talk all day about the golden rule or different aspects that we might all agree with that are good things or even true things, but it still doesn't make that leap to therefore God. And that's kind of where I am.
And really every religion in the world, almost every religion in the world has some kind of version of the golden rule.
Yep.
It's more or less, I think, a humanist thing more than the religious thing. That, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. If you treat people nice, they're going to treat you back.
Yep.
I mean, nicely back. I always say I'm a selfish altruist. I do nice things for other people, so other people do nice things for me. Plus, every time I make the world a better place, I'm also making the world a better place for myself. So that's why I say I'm a selfish altruist.
And that's why Kelley's a better person than I am.
You can definitely be a good humanist.
Yeah. So, it seems like it's pretty much a humanist trope.
That's
I'm not
definitely a
sure
good
how
point. That's definitely a good point that it doesn't prove that he's God, but I use it as a starter to kind of first to prove that he's a good moral teacher, and then you kind of build up to like the Lord, liar, lunatic apologetic.
I wouldn't be willing to go as far as is good teaching good things, but okay, for the sake of a discussion, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I definitely haven't read all the Vedas. It's like a lot of stuff to read, but where in the Vedas does it state the good rule, the golden rule? Sorry.
You know what? I'm not that familiar with them. I'm not. I could give you some parts of the Bible, but I mean, I'll try to look it up for you real quick.
And
I know with
let me ask this question.
the Vedic,
let me ask you this question. If you whether it's in the Vedas or not, would you stipulate that there are other religions that you would consider not to be true that do have something akin to what you would call the golden rule?
No, sir, because I would say that the Vedic religions like Buddhism and Hinduism, they have something called ahimsa, which is like do no harm. So it would basically be like do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you. Which that's not the golden rule. What's called the silver rule.
Well, when you take something like Jainism and the level that they go to protect life itself, I think that I have a lot more respect for them and how they take their beliefs seriously. And with that in mind,
Jainism is like Buddhism on steroids.
Yes, and with that in mind, there are definitely religions that have no relationship to Christianity that I would say overall teach people to be better people than we'll ever see the average Christian or most Christian faiths teach. So with that in mind, if we're just going to go with how religions teach people to treat other people, I would say that maybe top 20 out of the top 20. But honestly, I'm not really impressed, and especially whether there is a golden rule in the Bible or not, the application of it in real life among Christians, it's lacking, to say the least. But I just don't find it a compelling reason to believe in a God, because this religion and that religion does or does not say don't treat people like shit. I think that that's an evolutionary trait that we should all be to at this point, and some of us better than others. And I just don't see where that gets us to a God, though. So what convinces you that this God that you believe in is real?
Well, it's funny you bring up Jainism, because like I used to be an atheist, but like I kind of had a spiritual journey or awakening, whatever you call it. And one of the religions I actually looked into was Jainism, and I did think it was really cool. Like, you know, they have a very huge emphasis on, you know, trying to do as little harm. Like even they cover their mouths to not kill bacteria or something like that.
Walk at night, move, have all kinds of things. Yeah. And I hate to say it, but this way, I don't want it to come across the wrong way, but like you, I've looked at their beliefs and go, wow, these are some committed people to really trying to not harm not just other humans, but people in general. And I respect them for that. But I don't believe in their metaphysical and supernatural either.
No,
you get Sid, are you ready? Are you going to write it down?
The one thing that I'll go ahead.
I said, are you ready? Are you going to write it down? Because I got it for you now. Mahabharata 5, 15, 17.
What does it say?
Do not do to others what would cause pain if done unto you.
Yeah, that's the Hemza. That's the golden rule. That do no harm.
Yeah, and that's where you can find it at in the Vedas. Mahabharata 5, 15, 17.
Yeah, but I think that's an equivocation. That's not the same thing. Saying don't do evil is the same thing as saying do
I think you're equivocating. It's not the same exact words, but it's the same exact message.
Without a doubt.
I mean, I think you're equivocating because it's not the same exact words you're used to.
Well, like for example, like a baby follows the silver rule. Like they don't harm people. They don't, you know, hit people or, you know, make people feel bad.
That's not what I just
they
said.
Don't follow the golden rule. They don't.
What
they
it just said was, don't cause pain onto somebody if you don't want that pain to be brought onto you. That's the golden rule. That's it.
That's closer than some translations of the Bible would even come to it. I mean, there's more variation between Bible translations than that would fit that. And then you could read that from a pulpit and people wouldn't know that you weren't saying something from the Bible. It would sound completely acceptable as long as they didn't know where it came from. It's essentially the same thing.
The message is the same, just the words are different.
And not even that different.
That would be like saying don't hate people is the same thing as saying love people.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I don't know. Those are two completely opposite things. I don't know how you even thought that would be equivalent. These aren't two opposite things. These are two phrases that are saying the exact same message. Don't hurt other people because you don't want to get hurt.
Right, but so if I was following a Hemza, like I could technically not give to charity. That's not hurting people if I don't give to charity.
I don't know what that has to do with the golden rule. I don't know. Understand what giving to charity has to do with this.
Well, if I'm following the golden rule, like I would be compelled to give to charity because that's something. If I was, you know, destitute, I would want someone to give to me.
Okay.
But that would be applicable.
The whole idea here is to treat other people the way you want to be treated. That's the whole idea, right? That's the message that's being put across here. No matter what the words are, the idea is that you treat others the way you want to be treated. That's that golden rule is in like every religion, even the religions that are older than Judaism.
Yeah. I think we're quibbling over nuances of words and not really accepting that they're both trying to say the same thing. They're both saying, I mean, to summarize, This is the new King James version. Don't be an asshole, and that's a start. And to that starts with treating people the way you want to be treated. I don't see the disconnect there on treating people like they should be treated being a good thing just because they're saying don't be bad and one saying be good. The truth is, what is the opposite of bad? I mean, are we talking about find some middle line between good and bad, neutrality? There really is rarely anything that's in the middle. I mean, you're either doing right or you're doing wrong. Now, we may have shades, but that's what we treat ourselves, and that's how we tell ourselves and get through the day. But more often than not, in my life, in my experience, even when I'm doing wrong, I know what the right choice is. I may do the wrong thing for selfish reasons. And that would not be following the golden or the silver rule, because in that process, I'm being selfish. And by being selfish, I am harming someone else. Does that make sense?
It doesn't, I guess we'll have to just agree to disagree on, the golden rule and the silver rule being equivocal. But can I ask y'all, forget that him being the greatest moral teacher, would you all at least agree he was a great moral teacher? Yeshua?
Who?
Talking about Jesus?
Yeah, the Lord Yeshua. Mm-hmm.
Well, if we're talking about Jesus, if Jesus was actually one with God, then no, I would have to say no.
Yeah,
if God, the God of the Old Testament and Jesus are one and the same, then no.
No. Yeah. I'm coming at it completely from a moral, his moral teachings. Like, how would you rate them or value them?
I don't think that all the moral teachings within the New Testament are moral. So I don't know. I disagree.
Yeah. And for me, I've got to be honest.
Okay.
If I was going to rate Jesus on a scale of how good or bad he was as a moral teacher, I'd have to start with the fact that I'm not completely convinced he ever existed. So, but stipulating that and moving past the fact that he may or may not have existed, then it goes into can't say what Jesus was or wasn't. I can only go by what the Gospels say, and the Gospels. There are some things that I can agree with. There are some things that I disagree with. Would it make him some moral leader that would rank to some level that deserves worship? No, I can think of people here in my lifetime who have been better leaders and better examples of what moral leadership was. I mean, to be completely stereotypical, you start taking people like Mohandas Gandhi, or you take someone like Nelson Mandela, whatever imperfections or you may disagree with things that they did, they were committed to something that I think taught something a lot better than I could ever find with someone following the tenets of the New Testament. And truth is that with the Gospels, I just find Jesus lacking a little bit when it comes down to morality, because he talks out of both sides of his mouth. It's all about me. Forsake your family. That sounds pretty terrible to me, to forsake your family and follow him. That sounds pretty damn selfish.
Are you referring to the verses where he's like, if you don't hate father and mother, something like that?
Essentially, he's saying, put me first. And that sounds a little narcissistic to me at bare minimum. To think that God comes before family is, I'm not going to try to be insulting. So I'm just going to let you have conjecture on what I would say. But no, I don't find anything moral at all at that. I would say, hey, Sid, love your family. Love your family first. Kelley, love your family first. All you people out there watching this show, love your family before your God, because your family will be there for you. And God, he doesn't tend to show up.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree. He was either the biggest narcissist of all time, or he was God. It has to be one or the other.
Or he didn't exist.
But is there? Well, yeah. Well, that could be a whole hour-long conversation, but
yeah, much longer than this call.
Can I get y'all's opinion? What's y'all's thoughts on the Lord, liar, lunatic apologetic?
I'm not sure I'm familiar with it.
I don't know who that is.
Is it the Lord was a liar or a lunatic? I'm not qualified. I wasn't there. I'm not a psychologist. I don't think I'm qualified to make that kind of a decision. I can see it. I mean, it's possible, I suppose. I just don't see any evidence for it.
And frankly, let me say this: Jesus, there may have been a guy, Yeshua, who walked around selling fish sandwiches and wine, sold it to thousands a few times, all and traveled around doing a circus act. Maybe may have been a half a dozen of them. Either way, I have to stick with what the Bible says, and narrowing it down to just Jesus and the first four books of the first four Gospels, and part of the first chapter of Acts. It just really doesn't impress me, as I said before, on when it comes down to morality. I can find much better examples. Hell, I think I could find better examples of good morality in modern pop culture than I could Jesus.
Are there any teachings in particular you don't agree with or don't like?
Nazism.
You're talking about Jesus' teachings?
Yeah, from the Gospels. Any of his sayings that you don't like.
Well, I say that one that I take real issue with is it says, the Old Testament says that if you do this, if you commit adultery. But if you think about lust, you commit adultery. And making thought crime something that is sinful or evil is a terrible thing, because the truth is that we really don't have a lot of control on what we think. We have a lot of control on the situations we put ourselves in to be tempted, for the lack of a better way to put it. But things come into our mind, and I think that what makes me a better person is when I see and go, wow, that's a bad thing. I shouldn't do that, and don't do it. That's more moral than D and through the world and pretending that I never think anything bad, because I do. I think all kinds of bad things on a regular basis, and I enjoy it. Now, do I act on those things? No, I do my best to treat people like they deserve to be treated. So I think you're setting an unrealistic expectation, and you're setting people up for failure when you say, if you think bad thoughts, you're a bad person. You're a better person for thinking bad thoughts and not doing them. And that demonstrates that you're not a bad person, not thinking about it.
Do you, like many Christians, do you think Paul was speaking for Jesus?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, when Paul told slaves to obey their masters, even if they're cruel, that I don't agree with that. That's totally immoral.
Amen, Kelley.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I know it doesn't
verbatim right. Nobody notices
slavery. Go ahead.
No, I'm just making a joke. I'm making fun of myself.
Yeah, if I could change anything about the Bible, it would be to add just literally have it say slavery is evil. But it does imply it in there. It talks about, like, if you can get your freedom, to try and gain it. So,
and it said that makes you a more moral person than the Jesus you're promoting as a great leader.
Wait. Where does it say that at? And wouldn't what Paul wrote, that if it came later, wouldn't that override what was in it first? So when Paul said, obey your masters, even if they're cruel, wouldn't that override the command to try to break free?
It's in one of Paul's epistles. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
So Paul was wishy-washy. He was telling slaves to obey their masters, but run away. I don't.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I gotta think about that.
Makes sense. Well,
I think the whole point of. Oh, go ahead.
I about to say we've actually gone a little bit over time, so I was going to let you have the last word and then wrap up the show if that's okay with you.
Sid, let me say one thing real quick. As I said before, I want to stress you are a more moral person than your God, because you said, if I could add anything to the Bible, you would make it clear that slavery is wrong. And I believe you. I'm in Team Sid right now on this. So that makes you a better moral teacher than the guy in your Bible you're wanting to worship.
I appreciate that, but you know, I didn't invent the golden rule, even though we disagree on that. But
I do want to give you the last word, though. So go ahead.
Yeah, final word would be, as far as the apologetic I was talking about, it's something that C.S. Lewis invented like decades ago. It basically comes down to, you'd have to, have a whole conversation about it, but assuming the given that, Yeshua existed, he was crucified under Pilate, he was crucified because he claimed to be God. Given all these things, you're left with a trilemma, which is that either Lord, liar, lunatic. He was Lord. He really was God.
I don't even know if he existed.
Yeah, that's what I started with earlier.
I don't even know that he existed, so I can't say Lord, liar, lunatic at all.
Lord, liar, lunatic, or fantasy.
There's a scholarly consensus among Bible scholars that he existed and that he was crucified.
I don't know that that's true.
I disagree.
Like Bart Ehrman, who's an atheist, he says that he existed.
He says that there is some evidence for somebody named Jesus, but it might not have been the Jesus of the Bible, and we don't know.
It's a common name.
There's no definitive proof of the crucifixion at all.
I mean, it's a common name. I'm sure you could have found many people with that name running around the times. So, if a bunch of you,
there's extra biblical references to them, like Tacitus, and
not for 60 to 80 years later.
The idea that
we're talking way after.
Yeah, they're not until years, decades later. Even I'm assuming you're talking about Roman historians mentioning him, or mentioning that there was a worship of him. Yeah, that's not until like 40 years after he was gone. And all it says, and it doesn't say that Jesus was a person. It says that there were people who worship this guy Jesus.
And that's it.
And Tacitus talks about him being crucified under Pilate.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Go back and read Tacitus. He does not say that. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fair. But
all right,
it's more. I'll go ahead.
We need to wrap up the call though, so we're gonna let you go. And I really appreciate you calling in, Sid. I'd like to have you call back again and talk some more and continue the conversation if you want to.